Now we're going to have a look at a probability tree where we have 3 events, and I'm going to keep it simple to demonstrate the principle. So let's say I've now got a coin and I'm going to flip it 3 times. What are my potential outcomes? Well, the first thing is, whenever we get a question like that, we've got to trigger in our minds probability tree. Right, okay, so here's our first event. Okay, so here's our coin, and my first event, I can get a head or a tail, and we know probability, we've looked at this before. Okay, now we come to the second event. Okay, now what can happen on my second event? Well, I could get a head or a tail, or a head or a tail. Again, we just put in our probabilities. Okay, and my third event, well, you're there ahead of me now. All we do is, so this is our third event. Again, I can get a head or a tail. I could get a head or a tail. I could get a head or a tail. I could get a head or a tail. Okay, so again, let's fill in our fractions, which is pretty simple for us on this occasion. Okay, and there it is. So now, remember when we looked at this, we say, well, what are the possible outcomes? Now, I think this is always a really important column for us to fill in. Outcomes. So I could have head, 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 and now what's the probability? Do you remember when we've got the arms of the probability tree, we have to multiply them together. So it's a half times a half times a half. So 2 2s are 4, 2 4s are 8. So the chances of getting a head, head and head are 1/8. And in fact, all you can see, because we've got the same probabilities throughout. So let's just check. So next time it could be a head, head and tail. Can you see I'm just working my way logically along these lines. Next I could have head, tail, head. So head, tail, head, or head, tail, tail. Head, tail, tail. It's just about systematic working, being very logical. Now I could have tail, head, head. I could have tail, head, tail. I could have tail, tail, head, or I could have tail, tail, tail. Right, okay. Now you know, because they're all the same, these, I don't have to go through all these to prove it, but we're going to work out all these outcomes are all going to be, aren't they, 1/8, okay? So the question might say, well, what's the probability of getting coins that are all the same face, so either all heads or all tails? Well, we look down at it and we think there's only 2 that apply here, so that meets that criterion, so does that. And this time, obviously, that's an 1/8, that's an 1/8, and what we do now is we add them together. So getting all the same coins, either heads or tails, would be 2/8, which we then obviously simplify to 1/4. And next question might be, what's the possibility of getting at least 2 heads? Okay, so we've got to work our way through and think, that applies, there's 2. That does, so we're okay there. So does that, look, there's 2 heads. So that we're interested in that one, that one, that one, that's 3. There's another one, 4, and that'll do us. So the probability of getting 2 heads is actually 1/2. And that's how it works with 3 event probability trees.